Hello everyone, Mansi here. So this lecture is about control structures which are present in C language. These are all the things we are going to learn in this lesson. First, we are going to define what are control structures. Then we are going to classify the types of control structures and its subparts. So what are control structures? Control structures or instructions determines the flow of control in a program. That is, they enables us to specify the order in which the various instructions in a program are to be executed by the computer. There are three types of control structures which are present in C language, that are decision control statements, loop control statements, and case control statements. Let us elaborate these one by one. So, what are decision control statements? Decision control statements are a group of statements that are executed only when the condition is found to be true. If the condition is found to be false, then the else part statements are executed. There are three types of decision control statements that are present in C, that are if statement, ifelse statements, and nested if statements. Let's just elaborate these with the help of some examples. So, first is if statement. Such type of statements are implemented only and only if the condition we specify here is found to be true. Then and then only its respective block of code will be executed. Otherwise it won't, or it will return 0 or null. So this is our basic syntax for declaring if. For example, this is a sample code for if statement. Now what is happening in this program is we are given two variables, A and B. A's value is 16 and B's value is 20. Now we need to compare these two. That means whether A is less than B or not. If the condition is true, it will print variable A is less than B. Otherwise, it will return 0. In this case, it will print variable A is less than B. Next is if-else statements. In these type of statements, group of statements are executed only and only when the condition is true. That is, if the condition we are going to specify here is true, then these statements are going to be implemented. Otherwise, if the condition is false, then this else block will be implemented. These statements are going to be implemented. So if else has two blocks, one is if and another is else. For example, this is a sample code. Now what is happening here is that we are first taking age from the users. Now age, let's say I entered my age as, let's say, 20. So I'll compare age with 18. Now if 20 is greater than or equal to 18, it will print for me you can vote. But if, let's say, I entered 15 is not greater than or equal to 18, so it will print you are not eligible for voting. Now the last one for decision control statement is nested if statement. A simple explanation for this would be if inside an if. Now what happens here is that there are two if blocks. If for this particular syntax I'm talking, if there are two if statements. Now if the condition I specify here is true, then these statements are implemented and it goes out of the if else condition. Okay, but if this condition is false, it jumps to this. If this condition is also false, then it jumps to this else statements and this statement 3 is implemented. But another case would be this condition is found to be false, so it goes to this. This condition is found to be true, so it will implement statement number 2 and it will go out of the if else statements altogether. So there are two if blocks and there is one else block. It can grow more. So a general definition for it would be if condition 1 is false, then condition 2 is checked and statements are executed if it is true. If condition 2 also gets failure, then else part is executed. It's, for example, this is a sample code. Now what will happen here is that we have two variables A and B. A is 40 and B is 80. Now we have to first check that if is A greater than B or not. Now 40 is not greater than 80, so this condition becomes false, so our compiler jumps to this. Now else if A is less than B or not, that means is 40 less than B or not. So 40 is less than 80, so this condition is true, so this will be implemented. A is less than B, and then our compiler will go out of this if else statements. So our final output for this would be A is less than B. Now what are loop control statements? Loop control statements in C are used to perform looping operations until the given condition is found to be true. But why do we need looping looping statements. We know that the versatility of the computer lies in its ability to perform a set of instructions repeatedly. And you might need to implement some command repeatedly in your program several times. So for that we use loop instructions, because it makes our work easier and to implement those commands which needs to be repeated again and again. So there are three types of loop control statements, which are for loop, while loop, and do while loop. Now let us see these with the help of some syntax and some examples. The first is for loop. For loop allows us to specify three things about a loop in a single line. First, setting a loop. This is basically syntax explanation. Initialization, condition test, increment or decrement. So what this for loop specifies is that first you need to set a loop counter to an initial value. That is initialization. Next is testing a loop counter to determine whether its value has reached the number of desired repetitions. That is our condition test. And the third one is increasing the value of loop counter each time the program segment within the loop has been executed. That is increment or decrement. So this is the syntax for loop. And here we specify the statements for the for loop. This is a sample example. First we have initialized our variable I, then we have set it to I. That means our loop will work till it reaches the value 3. When I is equals to 3, it will stop. And as the loop takes one round, I's value will be implemented. First we have, let's say we have I equals to 1. Then first time it is implemented, I changes to 2. Then again when loop executes, I becomes 3, and then the program stops and it prints hello world. So next is while loop. Now while loop is generally used for performing some task for a fixed number of times. That it might be possible that you want to do something a fixed number of times in a program, and that's why we use while loop. This is the syntax for while loop. First we define a condition, that is how many times it should repeat. Then we write our statements, what should be printed or whatever. Then we increment or decrement our operation, just like we did in for loop here. So this is a sample example. Now what is happening here is that here first counter variable this counter variable count, we have created a variable named count which got initialized with value 1, and then it has been tested for the condition which says count should be less than or equal to 7. And if whenever this loop works, count value got incremented using this plus operator by 1, that it has been tested again for the loop condition. It keeps happening until the condition reaches false. That means when the count value reaches to 7, the control comes out of this loop. Next is do while loop. Do while loop is similar to while loop. However, there is one basic difference between them, that is do while runs at least one even if the test condition is false at the first place, but while loop won't. It will come out of the loop as soon as it gets the value false. So this is the syntax for do while, and here is an example for do while loop. Our output for this program would be out of loop. As I said, that do while runs at least once even if the condition is false, because compiler checks the condition after execution of its body. That means it is first printing it and then checking the condition. Next are case control statements. Now what are case control statements? These statements which are used to execute only specific block of statements in a series of blocks are called case control statements. For example, let's say you are given choice for let's say 5 items and you have to choose one. You choose number 1. Let's say we have 5 numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and something happens whenever you click either of them. So you click 1, and when you click 1, a message is generated for you. Such type of statements, such type of programs, when we need to make, use case control statements. There are 4 types of case control statements. First is switch case, another one is break, third is continue, and fourth one is go to. Just elaborate these. So first one is switch case statements. Switch case statements are used to execute only one specific case statements based on the switch expressions. For example, let's say we have 3 labels 1, 2, and 3. This statement execute hello, this statement execute world, and this statement execute hello world. So you chose one and you got hello. So this is example. Let's say switch case statements are mostly used when we have number of options and we need to perform a different task for each choice. For example, in this case, we are switching the value of switching the value of this variable value. Whenever we have case 1, that means we have numbers from 1, 2, 3, 4 till 6. If we choose 1, it prints value is 4. If we choose 2, it will print value is 5, and so on. Next is break statements. Break statements are used to terminate the while loops, switch case loops, and for loops from the subsequent execution. That means if we put this syntax in somewhere between our code, it will jump to another statement and leave that. If we are using it in a loop, the control will jump out of the loop. Next are this is an example, and this our output would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and execution comes out of the loop when I equals to 6. So basically break statement is used to terminate a loop or some switch cases. We use break statement in after every case we execute to let the compiler know that we are jumping to another case if the condition is false, if it is not chosen. Next is continue statement. Continue statement is used to continue the next iteration of for loop, while loop, and do while loop. So the remaining statements are scripted within the loop for that particular iteration. That means whenever continue is encountered within a loop, control directly jumps to the beginning of the loop for next iteration, skipping the execution of the statements inside loop body for the current iteration. That means it will leave the iteration in between and it will jump to the beginning of the loop. So this is the syntax, and this is a sample program. You should run it on your command line or whatever program you're using. And the last one is Goto statements. Goto statements are used to refer the normal flow of a program to the specified label in the program. But it is rarely used while doing an application level programming because it makes the program confusing, less readable, and complex. Also, when this is used, the control of the program won't be easy to trace. Hence, it makes the testing and debugging difficult. But then also, this is a syntax for Goto, and this is a sample program. Thank you for watching.